Tesla no longer the biggest EV producer. Geely launches satellites for driverless cars. Southeast Asia embraces EV revolution. Mobility services annual revenue will rise 40%. Israeli military can see through walls. Stratospheric balloon with mirror over Antarctica. Humans evolving to lower earnings in education? New car quality is declining.
Hello, I'm Johnny. Thank you for joining us on FUNDAY News. It's Thursday, July 7th, and here are your top stories. Nikkei Asia reported that Tesla is now the second biggest producer of electric vehicles after Chinese rival BYD surged past Elon Musk's company to take the top spot. The report said that during the first 6 months of 2022, Tesla sold 564,000 vehicles. However, Shenzhen-based BYD saw a 300% jump in sales, total 641,000 vehicles. Nikkei said BYD's rise underscores China's strengthening position in renewable energy, while enjoys scale and cost advantages across much of the supply chain for electric vehicles, batteries, and wind and solar energy.
According to Seoul-based S&E Research, BYD has outpaced Tesla in terms of monthly market share since April. This was in part because of disruptions at Tesla's Shanghai factory after its 2-month lockdown to suppress a wave of Omicron coronavirus cases. Tesla, along with a clutch of Chinese EV makers, including Li Auto, Xpeng, and NIO, were harder hit by the lockdowns than BYD, which benefited because most of its factories are not based in the regions and cities that suffered from the most severe restrictions.
Bloomberg reported that in early June, a Chinese rocket carried 9 Geely-made satellites into space, where the company hopes they will form the backbone of a network designed to one day connect with Geely's self-driving vehicles. Geely's joint venture with Chinese internet giant Baidu, called Jidu, on June 8th, unveiled its first artificial intelligence car, the Robo01, and announced plans to sell a version of it this fall. Geely also has partnerships with the self-driving units of tech giants such as Intel's Mobileye and Alphabet's Waymo.
Bloomberg said that on June 6th, a Geely-backed venture capital fund, GOY Capital Management, joined a funding round that invested $108 million in Israeli startup VNR Imaging, which makes technology for smart imaging products. A Li-controlled company agreed to buy 79% of the smartphone maker, Mizu Technology, from Alibaba, better positioning Geely as cars become more like intelligent mobile devices with wheels. A McKinsey survey found that Chinese had a greater willingness to pay for self-driving vehicles.
Nikkei reported that the EV market is taking off in Southeast Asia this year. Hyundai Motor began full-scale production at its new electric vehicle factory in Indonesia earlier this year. China's SAIC GM Wuling Automobile unveiled a new mini EV slated to start production in the Southeast Asian country by the end of the year, after Thailand lowered taxes on electric cars from 8% to 2% on June 9th. China's Great Wall Motor responded immediately by slashing the starting price of its Aura Good Cat by around 8% to 763,000 baht.
Nikkei said that Toyota is expected to start selling Japanese-built EVs in Thailand later this year, with plans to switch to local production as early as 2024. Mercedes-Benz plans to start assembling vehicles in Thailand this year, while Thai State Energy Group PTT aims to begin EV production in 2024 with Han Hai Precision Industry. Volvo announced that in March, it had begun assembling vehicles in Malaysia. A Malaysian producer of palm oil, the Fieldman Group, said in January that it would build a joint EV assembly plant with China's Chang'an Automobile in Malaysia.
A new study by the Oliver Wyman Forum and the University of California, Berkeley, found that mobility services, including car rentals, ride-hailing, and bike-sharing apps, are expected to generate an annual revenue of $660 billion in 2030. The figure represents a nearly 40% increase from the $260 billion of revenue generated in 2020. Researchers believe that the services will significantly transform how people get around in cities globally and will eventually surpass traditional public transit and privately owned cars.
The study, which analyzed 13 services in 3 regions, North America, Europe, and Asia, found that the new services would evolve at different speeds depending on location. Europe will overtake Asia as the fastest-growing electric vehicle market, and Asia will become a larger market for things like bike sharing and moped sharing. Currently, the Asian micromobility market is equal to that of Europe and North America combined, but will become larger than the other regions by 2030.
Insider reported that new Israeli military technology allows users to detect objects and people behind walls by using an AI-based tracking algorithm. The Xaver 1000, produced by the Israeli imaging solutions company Camaro Tech, could provide real-time information on objects and people concealed behind walls. Camaro Tech said that it only requires a single user to make use of a simple interface on an embedded 10.1-inch touchscreen display. It can penetrate through most common building materials.
The Xaver 100 compact handheld through-the-wall radar detector is the always available provider of basic, vital information on the presence of life behind walls.
The company said that the Xavier 1000 can display live objects behind walls in high resolution. It can detect whether a person is sitting, standing, or lying down. Even if they have been motionless for a significant period, specific body parts are also detectable, and it can detect the presence of life in rooms, the number of people, and their distance from the system, target height and orientation, and the general layout of a space. The company said that it's specifically useful in search and rescue operations.
In December 2023, NASA's high-altitude balloon will lift off from Antarctica for 4 weeks. It will carry the astrophysics stratospheric telescope for high spectral resolution observations at sub-millimeter wavelengths. The telescope is equipped with one of the largest mirrors ever to fly. As an alternative, the telescopes can be suspended from balloons and floated high above most of the atmosphere to make observations. The telescope is set to begin integration next month with the balloon's gondola, followed by pre-flight testing.
The high-altitude balloon will carry a telescope unit with an 8.2-foot primary mirror 130,000 feet above Antarctica. The mirror will enhance astrophysics.
According to NASA, the tricky bit is that the balloon-mounted telescope needs to be robust. With its 2.5-meter mirror that has to not only withstand mechanical vibrations, but also the pull of gravity to keep its parabolic shape within 2.2 micrometers. To achieve this, Italian optics company Medialario constructed the primary mirror of the telescope out of panels of lightweight aluminum in a honeycomb structure with surfaces made of gold-plated nickel. This was mounted in a carbon composite cradle for both sturdiness and lightness.
Researchers have found that natural selection is favoring people with lower earnings and poorer education. Lead researcher from University of East Anglia School of Economics, Professor David Hugh Jones, said that evolution also appears to be favoring people with a high risk of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, major depressive disorders, and coronary artery disease, as well as younger parents and people with more sexual partners.
For example, students will use written communication, oral presentation, and problem solving throughout their degree.
Researchers found that scores correlating with lower earnings and education were linked to having more children, meaning those people are being selected from an evolutionary perspective. In contrast, scores that correlated with higher earnings and education were linked to having fewer children, meaning that they are being selected against. The next generation is likely to be 1 or 2 percentage points lower in educational attainment than today.
In the 2022 J.D. Power Initial Quality Study, the car owners' complaint reports showed that in their first 90 days of ownership, new car owners are experiencing more problems than ever before, and that electric vehicles performed worse than gas-power models. 25 of 33 brands studied saw their scores grow worse this year. General Motors' quality control team seems to have done the best job of weathering the many crises of 2022. All four of its U.S. brands, Buick, Chevrolet, GMC, and Cadillac, improved their scores from 2021.
And the redesign only solidified its position as one of the very best affordable cars that you can buy in the market.
The study said that last year, the industry average was 162 owner complaints per 100 vehicles. This year, it was 180. The study admitted that the number may show that 2022 is an outlier if factoring in supply chain problems and other issues. However, the study found that buyers of feature-heavy luxury cars reported 196 problems per 100 vehicles on average. Buyers of mass-market brands reported 175. EVs had 240 complaints per 100 vehicles on average. Plug-in hybrid vehicles had 239, and gas-powered cars averaged 175.
And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us on FUNDAY News. Let's make every day a fun day. I'm Johnny Wu, your host. I will see you next time.